Your back hurts, your eyes are strained, you woke up tired even though you slept 8 hours. You have a cavity, a stiff neck, and a prescription you probably need refilled, and somewhere in the back of your mind you know this is just normal now. This is just what it feels like to be a human being in the modern world. But here is the thing, for roughly 300,000 years, none of that was normal. Not the back pain, not the cavities, not the chronic fatigue. Your ancestors lived without doctors, without medicine, without hospitals, and by almost every measurable biological standard, their bodies worked better than yours does right now. How is that possible? How could people who died at 40, if they were lucky, have been healthier than you? That question has one answer, and it is going to reframe everything you think you know about the human body. First, a distinction. Lifespan and health are not the same thing. Your ancestors faced infant mortality, predators, infections from injuries, and childbirth complications that killed early and often. Average life expectancy in the Paleolithic, that is the Old Stone Age, that belongs roughly 300,000 to 12,000 years ago, was around 35 years, but that number is dragged down almost entirely by childhood deaths. If your ancestors survived to adulthood, they had a reasonable chance of reaching 60 or even 70. And those decades of adult life? That was, by almost every measure, functioning at a higher level than yours. The bones tell the story first. Bioarchaeology is the study of ancient human remains to understand how people lived and died. And when bioarchaeologists started comparing prehistoric skeletons to modern ones, the results were startling. Researcher Clark Spencer Larson spent decades analyzing skeletal remains from populations spanning the transition from hunter-gatherer life to early farming, and what he found was deeply counterintuitive. Pre-agricultural humans, the ones who lived by hunting animals and gathering wild plants, had longer muscle attachment points indicating greater overall strength and far fewer signs of the kind of degenerative joint disease that plagues modern adults. When agriculture arrived and humans started eating grain-heavy diets and doing repetitive, hunched-over labor, the skeletons got shorter, weaker, more damaged. Your ancient ancestor who never saw a gym was probably stronger than you. The teeth confirm it. Dental caries, that is entirely absent in pre-agricultural human populations. When researchers examined skulls from hunter-gatherer sites around the world, cavities were rare to the point of being remarkable. Then agriculture arrived. Grain became the dietary staple, fermentable carbohydrate in the mouth that produce acid and eat through enamel. By the time early farming settlements were established in the Fertile Crescent, the region spanning modern Iraq, Syria, and parts of Turkey where agriculture first took hold around 10,000 years ago. The skulls from those early farming communities look, in some ways, like modern mouths, cavities everywhere. Your dentist would have had no customers for 290 years of human history. Now consider the spine. Lower back pain is so common in the modern world that it is the leading cause of disability globally according to the Global Burden of Disease Study. And yet analysis of pre-agricultural skeletons shows strikingly low rates of the kind of lumbar disc degeneration, that is the wearing down of the cushioning discs between your vertebrae, that underlies most chronic back pain. Orthopedic researchers have pointed to a simple explanation. Your ancient ancestors moved constantly in varied ways. They squatted, they climbed, they walked 10 to 15 kilometers a day on average. They carried loads in ways that distributed weight naturally through the whole body. They never sat in a chair for 8 hours staring at a screen. The spine, it degenerates in stillness, so let's reconstruct a day. Imagine your ancestors somewhere on the African savanna, roughly 100,000 years ago. You wake at dawn without an alarm because your body has been regulating its own sleep cycles by firelight and darkness for your entire life. There is no artificial light suppressing your melatonin, that is the hormone your brain produces to make you sleepy. You sleep until your body is done sleeping. Then you rise. The morning begins with movement, not exercise in the modern sense, not a deliberate workout, just life. You walk to find water. You gather food from familiar patches of land. You read the terrain, the plants, the wind. Your bare or minimally shod feet are landing on uneven ground, which activates the small stabilizing muscles in your feet, ankles and hips that modern footwear keeps permanently switched off. By mid-morning you have already walked several kilometers without thinking about it. Food is diverse. This is crucial. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham of Harvard has documented the dietary breadth of hunter-gatherer societies, and it is extraordinary by modern standards. Tubers dug from the earth, nuts, seeds, insects, eggs, and animal protein when available. That diversity meant a wildly varied microbiome, the community of microorganisms, your immune system, your mood, your inflammation levels, and your metabolism. Research by Tim Spencer An epidemiologist at King's College London has compared the gut microbiomes of modern hunter-gatherer populations like Hadza of Tanzania to those of people in industrialized nations. The difference is staggering. The Hadza carry roughly 40% more microbial diversity in their guts and might greatly linked to immune function, mental health and resistance to chronic disease. Your ancestors' gut was a thriving ecosystem. Yours, fed on ultra-processed food, is closer to a managed plantation back to the day. By afternoon, your ancestor may studied by James Society in the 1960s among the Hadza, and by Marshall Salins, whose 1966 essay coined the phrase the original affluent society, showed that subsistence in a rich environment often required only 4 to 6 hours of actual work per day. The rest was for social time. During play, conversation, rest, the chronic stress, the low-grade, never-ending cortisol drip of modern life, the performance reviews and the deadlines and the financial anxiety was largely absent. Acute stress, yes, a lion kind. And that matters because chronic stress is now understood to be a direct driver of cardiovascular disease, immune suppression, inflammatory disorders, and mental illness. The counterintuitive twist in all of this is the one that tends to land hardest. Agriculture, the invention we were taught to celebrate as the foundation of civilization and human progress, was in many ways a health catastrophe for the individual human body. When your ancestors gave up foraging for farming, they got denser populations, which meant faster disease spread. They got narrower diets centered on a handful of staple crops, which meant nutrient deficiencies that left marks on bones. They got inequality. Evidence from farming settlement shows a sudden appearance of varied burial wealth, indicating social stratification, which meant some people ate well and many people did not. They got repetitive labor that damaged joints and spines. They got cavities. They got shorter. Clark Spencer Larson called this transition the worst mistake in the history of the human race, a phrase originally coined by Jared Diamond in a 1987 essay in Discover magazine, precisely because the archaeological record keeps confirming it. Civilization gave you the internet and vaccines and this video. No argument there. But your body did not evolve for civilization. It evolved for something older, something wilder, something your cells still remember even if your mind has long forgotten. And here is where the mirror appears. Your back hurts because your spine was designed to move and you do not move it enough. Your gut is inflamed because your microbiome evolved on dietary diversity and you eat the same 10 foods every week. Your eyes are strained because they were built for a landscape of varying distance, and you have spent the last decade staring at a rectangle 12 inches from your face. Your sleep is fractured because artificial light has severed the connection between your brain and the sky. Your immune system misfires into allergies and autoimmune conditions, partly because it evolved to contend with parasites and microbial diversity that you no longer encounter. None of this means you should abandon your life and go live in a savanna. That ship sailed 12,000 years ago, but understanding why your body struggles in the modern world starts with understanding what your body was built for. It was built for movement, for varied food, for darkness at night, for social connection, for acute stress followed by long stretches of calm. The humans who had all of that did not have a word for chronic back pain. They did not need one. Your body has not changed, only the world around it has.